guys, another episode of Hit by a Truck. My name is Judy Haddad. I'm the owner of Orange Purple Passions, My Healing LLC, and founder and executive director of 5 Purple Oranges, the charity founded after my son and I were hit by a truck and he was killed. So I told you, excuse me, frog in my throat. I used to love when Jim Henson did that joke. That's like a little aside there. Goodness. I used to love when I got off track. So I said to you I would go and do, I've dealt so much with the crap show. I've gotten into some of the purpose, but I wanted to talk about faith. My last video was finishing up the court cases. So 2017, in the beginning of 2017 is when we finished up the criminal case. 2016 was a constant struggle with faith for me, but I didn't really understand it. So I had said to you that I went to Ulapalooza in the fall of that year, and I was trying to explain my lack of faith, but I didn't have words for it. I knew that even when it came to the criminal case, that I just didn't believe anything would happen. Now, I didn't know anything that might have been going on behind the scenes to get the case. I had trust in the training and skills of the investigators, the training and skills and intelligence of my attorney, that type of thing. But I didn't have faith that justice would come of any of it, that my family would see what we needed to see to help us move on. And granted, there's no moving on. There's no amount of prison time that makes anything feel better. So I know that now. I knew that then. But so as I was expressing my lack of faith, people came to me with talks of, first of all, I'm Jewish, but talks of Jesus and talks of going to church and going to synagogue or what have you, and that just wasn't what was missing. And I look back now in the meantime and I can see that I was trying to fill that hole in a lot of ways. Like I had put a lot of money into the house, making it the way Alana and I would want it. I had built a fire pit outside because I had found that there were moments pre and post being hit by a truck where I found that stillness sitting out by a fire on a winter's night, and like how I wanted to bring that to my life. And so I was spending a fortune, because I'm not going out to chop down my trees, so I was spending a fortune on firewood, and then I was spending a fortune on massages at one point to get my body back in gear, and at one point I was spending a fortune on yoga classes because all of a sudden I wasn't practicing at home. So it was always this journey. I didn't see it then for what it was. I see it now more clearly. So after the criminal case, the conviction and sentencing, and before restitution was finished, I went to Vegas, Las Vegas, for a conference. And so I had been doing in 2016 a lot of personal development, but not quite sure what I was looking for. I thought I was trying to get help in moving forward with this business, and I was going to just go and rock my business, and I was going to do great, and that's what life was going to be about. And then at least I had something to feed into the charity when I got older and what have you. And the charity wasn't going to be my purpose. It was just something I needed to do, and that somebody else would be running it. I was just a figurehead. So this was all sort of going around in my mind, but I didn't really know all of this, like consciously understand all of this. Boy, I'm really hoping this is recording. I keep moving back, and then you probably can't hear me, and if I'm afraid if I move forward, because I have no idea what you're saying. So, So 2017, March of 2017, I went to this conference in Vegas, and it was Eric Worre, it's GoPro, and I had never liked him before, and it wasn't GoPro, it was Most Powerful Women in Network Marketing that is done by his wife. And at that time, I was thinking, in the meantime, I'm gonna work on this network marketing business while I get my stuff done, and at least it's something. At the moment, I don't have anything else my heart is telling me to do. I think it was the second year I bought a VIP ticket, and I got out of it what I kind of now expect that is my real goal for attending anything anyway. But so a lot of people were attending this conference to get like a list of things that they needed to do with their lives or their business. And I think I was looking for something to spark that faith. So I got some cool things out of the whole journey. I got to meet one of my coolest friends. Like, I'd never met her in person. I got to meet and hang out with her. One of my closest, keeping my heart friends from Canada was there. We hung out and just chilled. And we had done that a couple times since we first met. And it was just like, she's that person that I can just hang out with and chill with. And I can't even explain it. Just you want to just hang out with this girl, right? So that's our relationship. And so out of the blue, I'm in the hotel lobby at the Mirage, and I decide, I'm going to get a tattoo. And I had this idea for a tattoo in my head for a while. And I hadn't really shared it with anybody. And I had some help with the design of the tattoo unwittingly by the person. And then I just walked in there. I said, this is what I want. This is what I'm thinking. We scheduled my tattoo for the next day, and he drew up this design, and I was just like, this is perfect. And I think in the meantime, I told my mom I was going to do this. She started freaking out. So I had always sort of pictured it somewhere on my left side, because that was the side that was the Elan side of my body, and that was the most damaged side. And I didn't know if I wanted anything on my scar, because I just and I put it in my tat has a number in it, and putting a number on my forearm seems very Holocausty. So I ended up with it on my shoulder, which is, I don't see it every day, but I know it's there. And Erin, my friend Erin from Canada, hung out with me and held my hand, and she could have been doing all these cool things with all her friends, and she's hanging with me while I get my tattoo. That's the kind of friendship that I just adore her. So that was one of the coolest experiences of my life, because I have never been a tattoo person, and I shouldn't say never, chances are I'll never have another one. And but this was to honor Elan. And I just felt so freeing. I just felt okay, this is the start. This is the start of my life. This means something. This is the start of me being who I'm meant to be. Two other things came out of it immediately for me. I met this friend. I met this another Canadian, very tall Canadian, who ended up sort of figuring prominently in my life later, and it's a friendship that I appreciate now that I wouldn't have known would have been there. And then one of the speakers just said something about, and there was her personal story about being down. She had a story about she was really down on herself, and then she looked in the mirror and started appreciating herself. I'm not telling it very well. It spoke to me, and I wanted to be there, but I didn't know how to be there. In the meantime, given what has happened to me, if you just met me on the street, you wouldn't know it. I'm more or less a happy-go-lucky person. I was enjoying life, but I had this deep sadness and this lack of faith that I didn't know how to describe. So I met one of the speakers, formed a charity after the loss of her child as well, and I tried to talk to her, and she was just such a biatch that I was okay, I don't ever want to be like you. You don't want to help me. Like, if you really are a charitable person and you're doing this amazing thing, and maybe hers was a foundation and not a charity, and yes, there is a difference. Maybe it really is all about your ego. And again, I didn't understand that at that point. I was just thinking, well, she's not going to help me. I don't know what's going to happen. And I had, by then had already retained the lawyers and had been working on the stuff. And we just didn't, like, everything was in the works for 5 purple oranges. But the thing that came out of this, and I think it's gonna be a short one this week because it is, because I don't have my notes. The thing that came out of this for me, I had to have, I received a spiritual healing coaching license because of the work I do on my table for raindrops. So it's really important that because I'm not licensed by the state to lay my hands on you. I'm licensed by the country to do that work. So it's a very different thing. And so part of my license is getting this coaching training. It's spiritual training. I found it very enlightening, but I could see as I was writing my mission statement that I still wasn't there. I still wasn't, like, I knew I wanted to bring love and light to people's lives, but I just still wasn't there. But after this conference, I received a call from the organization. Now, rationally, I understand what they're doing, but sometimes emotionally, I can still be bought. And received this call, so, well, we wanted you to take our training. We're gonna get you here, we're gonna get you there. And I'm like, nothing else is working for me. Maybe I'll just do it. It's like this investment. If I put in this investment and I triple my money, great, And it started out with, and I actually asked around with some friends who had done the same thing, and it started out with just some basic coaching, and it's very similar to some of the coaching I do with some of my clients. And I was like, okay, this is good, this is interesting, but I also feel like this is allowing me to, I was still sort of figuring things out, and I was still sort of not invested in it and not invested in making change. And it was allowing me to sort of explore a few things, but stay in my little bubble, wherever that was. And then they asked me to take their trainer program to become one of their coaches. And again, in my mind, I know this is what they do. This is a sales thing, but it ended up being the best thing I've done for myself since post crash, post the loss of my son. I ended up being matched with actually the head of the organization, their head coach, who designs, I believe, quite a bit of the curriculum. And as he's training me to train others or to coach others, we just had to keep going off book so many times because I wasn't there. I wasn't ready yet. And he ended up being one of the most influential people in me finding my faith. So I want to leave that there. I want to talk about that on next week because the switch to Thursdays has thrown me off this week, I gotta admit. So I really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you for Hit by a Truck next Thursday. Thanks for watching.